Hello to all and welcome back to Tally CA Connect. Firstly, thank you so much for meeting with us every Wednesday to discuss TallyPrime features here at this forum. And today's topic of discussion are covering the inventory module of TallyPrime. So CAs, particularly with the manufacturing entities as clients, often get requests from their clients, need help with the implementation. So I'm sure this session will be particularly helpful for them and very useful. And we'll also be covering different costing methods, stock valuation. So please welcome our expert for today, CA Kunal Soni from Ahmedabad. He's practicing from Ahmedabad, who have an expertise in TallyPrime, even system implementation of various softwares, especially with Tally. So we are grateful for that he has trust in Tally and he recommends how you can make use of features in a best way. So today he's here to take us through the manufacturing concern for Tally for manufacturing entities as well as for entities who uses inventory features of TallyPrime and how you can make best use of such inbuilt features in TallyPrime. So thank you so much, Kunalji, for your time and curating this session. I'm sure that will be very useful for everyone. So Kunalji has taken over 100 plus corporate training sessions and he has various insights received from so many different clients. So I'm sure it will be a very useful one. And as you can see, the recording is on. So you'll definitely get it. So thank you so much, Kunalji. Over to you.
Thank you, Kumaji, for the introduction. And thank you, Tally Solutions, for inviting for this session. Okay, so first thing before we initiate, that why this particular session on inventory management in Tally. So see, being a CA, there are many things that let's say even when you are auditing or the other aspects are there, it would be helpful to you from the perspective of verification. And apart from the same, for better internal controls and other things, you could even suggest your clients that how to maintain inventory. So I would say that there are many features in Tally which are already the inbuilt features, and there is no specific need for any sort of customization for the same. You could use these inbuilt features and have proper inventory management, cost tracking, reorder levels. Everything could be managed in Tally, in the default Tally without any customization. So what is the basic purpose of today's session? I would just provide you with a walkthrough of all the features that are available with regards to inventory, that basically right from creation of inventory masters, grouping for the same, unit of measure creation for the same, how the valuations are done, how it impacts the financial, then the cost tracking analysis in Tally, that for a particular order, if you want to track your overall cost of manufacturing, then how you could trace the same, the bill of material, scrap, byproduct, co-product. So I would try to cover all these things in the today's session. Okay, and before initiation, yes. So if you have any question, then you can directly ask. And there is just one question in the chat box before initiation only. We run 24/7 manufacturing and update the production in Tally once daily, but sales are invoiced throughout the day. This causes negative stock unless we pass provisional production entries, which later needs editing due to actual consumption difference. What is the best compliance? So, okay, I would cover all these things, what and how you could have all these things catered in Tally. Okay, I would just share my screen. Hope the screen is visible. Okay, so first thing, to initiate with the inventory management in Tally. So all of you might be aware of the same, but I would just provide you with a walkthrough as the same. There is one option with regard here, maintain inventory. So let's say whenever you want to have inventory management in Tally, you need to set this option to yes. That is the basic core configuration that is supposed to be done. Then there is an option with regards to integrate accounts with inventory. Now, what is the relevance of this particular option? So see, basically there are two alternates that Tally has already provided for the purpose of preparation of financial statements. So if you integrate your accounts and inventories, then in that case, what would happen? What all inventory valuation and stock is there in the stock summary, that would be auto-populated in the closing stock in the financials, that is balance sheet and P&L. However, if you set the same to no, then what you could do is you could just create one of the stock items. You could just manually punch the figure on day basis or monthly basis, and you could have your financials. So that is the basic relevance of this particular option. I would just like to show you with the same how that works. So let's say when we go to financials. Now see, if you currently look into the same current asset, there is stock in trade, and the directly the values are punched. The basic reason for the same is we have set this option integrate accounts and inventory to no. Now let's say if we set the same to yes. Now see what happens, that what all inventory items were there in your closing stock that are directly reflected in the current assets. So this is basic relevance of the term integrate accounts and inventory. Hope the same is clear. Moving to the next option, enable price levels in Tally. Now see what is the relevance of this particular thing. Let's say you are a trader or anything and you have predefined price list or brochures. That let's say if you are a bulk dealer, so for any particular, let's say if there is any sort of FMCG product, you are a bulk dealer, and what happens that you want to provide some sort of discount or concessions on bulk quantity purchase to your customers. Then what you could do is you could just set your brochure directly through this. So you can set this option to yes, enable price levels in Tally. Then if you look into the same, there is an option here to define the levels. So you can define for retailers and wholesalers separately. And apart from that, you could even define it for any specific stock group or all items. So let's say if you want to define for all items for retailers, it is applicable from which particular date. Let's say we are taking any date. Then you could just mention the same year. So let's say if someone is purchasing this particular smart TV, so let's say for an order of up to 30, the rate would be 40,000. Here there is no discount. From 30 to 60, the rate would be let's say 36,000. Plus you would want to provide 1% discount. For 60 and above, it is 35,000 plus 2% discount. So what happens, see, accordingly you could define your price levels. So let's say whenever you are preparing your sales invoice, if this price list that retailer is selected, in that particular case, the sales price would be automatically calculated based on the quantity that is entered. So this is again one of the very good feature which is helpful for I would say dealers or retailers or who basically deal with traded goods. So they can use it and freeze the sales price for, with regards to the same. Then there is one more option that is enable batches. Now see what is the relevance of this option. So let's say if you are into a or the client is into a manufacturing industry or any particular industry, and you want to have specific traceability with regards to batches. Generally, this is very useful for the pharma segment. So let's say pharma company, whenever the manufacturing takes place, it takes place into various batches, and each particular batch has a definite manufacturing date and even the expiry date, and that is even applicable for the perishable goods manufacturing. So Tally has inbuilt provided that feature that if you want to have anything in batches, so let's say for any inventory, the stock is let's say 1,000 quantity. Now out of that 1,000, 300 is of batch 1, 200 of batch 2, and 500 of batch 3. And each particular batch has a different manufacturing date and different expiry date. Then that report would be entirely available from Tally directly. However, for the same, you need to maintain the same in batches. So I would just provide that how the report for the same would be available so that you have an idea. And post that I would even show you that how to do data entry, how the things are captured. So if you look into inventory books, there is one report for batch summary in Tally. So let's say we are selecting any stock item. Currently, we are selecting a particular batch. Now see, these are the three batches that we have selected: batch 1, batch 2, batch 3. So the overall stock is 1700, and out of that, the stock in each particular batch is provided here, and the total is 4,25,000 in terms of value. You can just even view the opening, closing, inward, outward, manufacturing date, expiry date, show the numbers to expiry, even that could be managed here. So let's say for this particular report for medicine, for batch number 001, the manufacturing date was 4th November 20, expiry was 31st December. So number of days till expired, now the same has already been expired. So it doesn't show any number of days. Else these reports over provide you with the details that within how much days those batch are going to expire, so that you could sell the same on prior basis. So this is the basic relevance of maintaining inventory batch wise in Tally. Moving forward, that is job order processing. For job work, it is very useful, this particular feature. So let's say if you receive or send goods on job work and you are doing the work, then for that you can enable the same. Enable cost tracking. Now this is basically useful for the purpose of order wise cost analysis in Tally. So for a particular sales order, if you want to trace the entire details, that what is the cost of manufacturing, what are the overheads that have been incurred, and against the same, at what rate the same has been sold, then in that particular case you could get that report from the cost tracking. I would just show you one of the reference reports, and post that we would even do the entries individually and see that how that works basically. So there is one report named item cost analysis. So if you want to view the same for stock group or stock item or stock category, you can just select the same. So let's say we are currently viewing for this particular system. So see what this report shows, that there are direct overheads which is amounting to 10,000. So what is that? That is basically the labor cost incurred in manufacturing. Then there are other overheads also. Let's say there would be power and many other overheads which would have been incurred. So that amounts to 87,500. Traveling expense for this particular order, it turned out to be 3,000 rupees. And against the same, the total cost of consumption is, let's say, 17 lakh 50,000. So how that has been derived? So let's say this is a television, 17-inch brand A smart TV. So this, to manufacture this TV, they required a screen, which was raw material. So the cost of the same is 10,000 per number, and they even required the IC for the same, which was 25. So the total effective cost turned out to be 18 lakh 37,500, and the per unit cost for the same turned out to be 36,750. So this is the total cost for the purpose of 50 this televisions that are manufactured, and against the same those televisions are sold at a rate of 49,000. So the total value turns out to be 24 lakh 50,000. So your total profitability for this particular order turns out to be 5 lakh 99,500, and per unit profitability is 11,990. Now so this report comes directly from Tally. So the only thing is you need to have proper configuration setup, do data entry through proper referencing. Then in that particular case, these reports would be directly available from Tally. So see, I would say first purpose is just to make you aware of all these options, that what is the relevance of all these options. And then I would even show you that how you need to do data entry, how you need to do the setup for the same, and how you could use it. And that was cost tracking. Along with the same, there is an option even for job costing. So if you want to have specific job costing, you can enable this option to yes. Then if you want to use the discount column in the sales invoice, you could just use set the same to yes. Do you want actual and billed quantity to be separate? So let's say there are many industry which provides for samples to their customers. So they bill for, let's say, 100 units only. However, they actually provide the same to be 102 units. So those 2 units additional are basically sample. So actual units that has been dispatched are 102, however billed are 100 only. So in that case, you could even manage the same. So these are basically some of the inventory, I would say, configuration setups which you need to enable initially, and that is available from the F11 feature in Tally. Okay. Till now, any questions? I would just like to take it up.
There are quite a few in Q&A as well. So you can see if you've already.
Yes, sure. So the first question in the Q&A, that is how to permanently set costing method as FIFO rather than editing each and every stock item. Okay. So I would like to take it up that let's say whenever you are doing any sort of stock valuation, see, initially when you create the master, the first point is that you need to create it individually. So let's say we select here the costing method. So whenever you are creating the master, you need to select individually only. So let's say here it is FIFO average price. Okay. Now Tally has provided one option that for the purpose of viewing from balance sheet or stock summary, if you want to have specific valuation, so let's say there would be different valuation methods. However, what you want that for all these stock items, the valuation method should be FIFO only by default. Then in that case, it would provide you valuation based on FIFO. Let's say here, if I select LIFO, then in that case, it would provide the valuation based on the LIFO. So see, for the purpose of initial setup, you need to go to the master tab and you need to select the same individually. However, if from the reporting perspective or the financial perspective, if you want that, what is the value which comes when all the stock items are set to FIFO, LIFO or average, then there is an option that has been provided. But for setup, initially you need to select based on the master creation. Then we don't have an option to keep FIFO as default method. If there's an option for user to set a method as default, it would be helpful. So see, yes, initially, as I told that for at the time of master creation, you need to have it individually, and post that from the reporting perspective, if you want to view the same, that what would be the change, then that is available through single click from Tally. Then if in the production process, some units of raw material are fixed and some are variable, it is better to consume raw materials through physical manufacturing vouchers. Please suggest. So this we would basically look into when I would provide you with a walkthrough for the entire manufacturing process. So in that this query would be answered. What is the financial effect of additional cost added in BOM? So that also would be, I would say, catered when I would take up the manufacturing process. How overheads are allocated. So let me do one thing first. Let me just provide you with a walkthrough as to first BOM scrap. I suppose most of the questions would be answered in that. So let's say just for example, we have created some of the stock items. So there's a stock item. Let's say these are brand A 17-inch smart TV, LED TV. Okay. Now I would even provide you with an understanding that what are the stock group, stock categories that are there. So now if you look into the same, it is under the stock group of brand A. So first is in the F12 setup, there is an option that is provided that use stock group for stock items and use stock categories for stock items. I'm enabling this option. Now see what happens that I would just provide you with one screen. Hope the screen is visible.
Yeah, the stock item. Yes.
Okay. So now see what is the, I would say, basic difference between stock group and stock category, or the basic relevance. Why there are two fields that has been provided in Tally for the purpose of stock group and stock category. So let's say just for your understanding, there is one stock item. There is a brand A and brand B. There are two brands that are there. There are different inches of television. So one is 19 inches, 17 inches. Then there are even the variants in TV. One is smart TV, other one is LED TV. Okay. Now, let's say you being, I would say, for the purpose of evaluating MIS and providing it to your clients, you need an analysis brand wise, inches wise, and the variant wise, that is LED or smart TV. So what you could do is, so see, in the subgrouping, so there is a main group that you have created. There are two grades, that is grade 1 and grade 2. So in that grade 1, there is a subgroup which is brand A and brand B. So these both televisions are under the brand A. So that you have kept under brand A. Similarly, these both are under brand B. So that you would categorize the same under brand B. Similarly, when you go to category, so the main category is television, and under that category, you have selected two subcategories. So one is the LED and the other one is smart TV. So what happens that, let's say, if you want to view that how many different brand smart TVs are there with you. You can just click on that stock category report and have all the brand smart TV in just one single click. Similarly, if you want that what are the different variants television available of brand A, then in that particular case, you could just select this particular group, that is brand A, and you would have all the variants, that is whether it is LED, smart, or any other TV. So see, this is the basic relevance of the categorization, and this is very useful. So let's say generally what happens that let's say if in any business there are, let's say in IT networking only, so there are some sort of cables. Now you would have that cables of same sizes of different companies. Let's say customer ask you for the same for company A. However, the company A cables are not available with you, but there are company B and C cables that are available. So let's say if you would have grouped the same properly, what you could do is you could just select that particular group of that cables. You could just select, just check the same that which all brands cables are available, and you could directly provide it to that customers that this brand is not available, this is available. So whether if that works, you can have it. So this is very, I would say, useful from the perspective of evaluation, that you could even evaluate the same further, that which brand cables are sold more. Accordingly, you could have inventory of the same more. So this is very useful for the purpose of data analysis. So how that can be created in Tally? So let's say there are two options which are provided, under and the category. So under is basically the stock group, and category is basically the stock category. So for a single stock item, you want two separate groupings. One is based on the brand and other is based on the variant. Then you could select the same. And now see, this brand A we have created in grade 1 under the television. And similarly, if you see the smart TV we have created under the category that is television. So let's say when you look into the report for the same, so we are going to stock summary, and when you see this television, so I have just created one group under the electronics. Under the electronics, there is one subgroup which is television. Under the television, I have created two groups that are grade 1 and grade 2. Under that grade 1, I have created brand A. Under grade 2, it is brand B. And under brand A, there are two televisions. These are basically my stock items. So these are the subgroups that has been defined here. So what happens that if I want to view it individually, that what all televisions are there of brand A, then I could just select the same and have a detailed view of the same. So that is first thing. Similarly, if you want to view the same category wise, then there is a report named stock category report. So let's say again we are going to this particular category of television. Then in that I have created two separate, I would say, variants of the categories, that is LED TV and smart TV. Now the same stock item, if I want to view the same category wise, that which all are there. So this is brand A and brand B LED TV. So these are under the category of LED TV. Similarly, I have a category of smart TV. Accordingly, I can have it here. So this stock grouping and stock categorization, these are very crucial and helpful from the perspective of MIS. And even see, being a CA, you would have various, I would say, inventory items based on the HSN under the single chapter. So you could even define it based on the same, that what all are there in single chapter. You could define the rate of HSN for that particular chapter as a whole rather than individually updating the HSN for each particular item. So all those things are possible through this. Similarly, there is an option for units. Now, see, in units also, if you look into, there are multiple options like unit of measure, whether it's a simple unit, whether it is a compound unit, and you could even use the alternate unit in the same. So let's say I would just take so these are some of the units that I've already created. One is the box, grams, kgs of 1,000 grams, meters, and numbers. I would do one thing. I would just create one stock item. So let's say I'm just item 1. Currently, I'm keeping it under primary. Now, see, there are various options. Now, what is the relevance of this is the same. So let's say units, if I keep on kgs, then by default, the stock would be maintained in kgs only. Now, let's say there is a scenario that I have some fixed denomination or fixed conversion for the same. So let's say my 1 kg and it is equivalent to 1000 grams. So this is basically useful if you want to have compound units. Then in that case, you could even have the same. What is this? This is compound unit. So let's say uh, you have one specific categorization. Let's say your 10 units are packed in one box only. Then in that particular case, what you could do is you could just mention the same, that one box of 10 units. Then what would happen, that by default, see, whenever the inventory of any box is maintained, and along with the same, if you want to view that how many total units are dispatched, then you would have both the reports. So just for your understanding, if I would just take into the same, let's see, this is stock summary. Now this medicine is there. Let me open the entire period. So let's say this is my compound unit. Now see what happens. See, currently what it shows is that this compound unit is of 1000 kgs and 400 grams. So there are two purchases for the same. So what happened? See, initially what was mentioned in the unit. So in the unit it was mentioned that 1000 kgs are purchased. So it shows 1000 kgs. And the next purchase that was there, it was of 0.4 kgs, 0.4 kgs. So 0.4 kgs is equivalent to 400 grams. So what it shows that it is total 1000 kgs and 400 grams. Now, let's say if you look into the report for the same, there is one option here. So show tail unit of compound units. If you set the same to yes, see what it shows, that there is a total of 10 lakh 400 grams. So for the same unit of measure, if you want the same, that your quantity should be there in kgs, then in that particular case, you could have the report in kgs also, that what are the total kgs. If you want the same quantity or same unit, I would say report in the unit of measure, which is grams, then in that particular case, you could even set the tail unit. Then in that case, you would get the report in grams. So this is basically the relevance of the compound unit in Tally. Now, when this is useful, this can be used only when your conversions are fixed. So what in case if the conversions are variable? So let's say there are three examples. Basically, one is the selection of simple unit of measure. So let's say one is, let's say these numbers. Though here the conversion, if you look into, for let's say this IC, this stock item. So unit is numbers. Now number here, it is a simple conversion, that is number. There is one more option for alternate units in Tally. So let's say if you look into the report for the same, currently I haven't done any entries with this alternate units. So let us create one new stock item. I would show you. Alternate units. I'm keeping it under primary only as of now. So let's say I'm selecting box as the main unit. See, there is one option here. Use alternate unit. I need to set the same to yes. So once I set the same to yes, it would even ask me with the alternate units for the same. So let's say I selected numbers. So in this case, let's say I'm just putting that my standard is 10 numbers, it is equivalent to one box. Okay. I'm just saving the same. That's I'm entering any voucher for purchase. I'm selecting this particular stock item. Currently, I'm not filling up all other details like this go down and all this, and this cost tracking and other. So see what I'm doing is, so as you know, we have box and the numbers. So let's say one box is equivalent to 12 numbers. So see what it happens, that whenever I enter any particular thing, both the unit of measure are captured here. Let's say the rate is 400. Let's say I save this particular entry. Now see, when you would look into the inventory for the same, so we created with the name alternate unit. Okay. Now see, currently what it is displaying. One box rate is 400, value is 400. Along with the same, if you want to view the same with alternate units, one box which is equivalent to 12 numbers and the amount is 400. Let's say you are doing one more entry for the same. I would just duplicate this entry. Now I am mentioning one box is equal to, let's say, 20 numbers. So now see what happens that when you look into your closing stock, you would have it in under both the unit of measure that there are two boxes. The total numbers are 32 and the total stock is this much. And how that 32 is derived? So inward is 12, then the other box, the one for the other box, that is 20. So this is something that is, I would say, one of the really good feature that is there and which could be used if, let's say, if in case you have multiple unit of measures. So what, let's say if you have simple unit of measure, then what you could do, you could just select one kgs, box, numbers or anything, you can select the same and use the same. If you have some fixed conversion ratio for the same, then in that case, you could use the compound units. That let's say one box is equivalent to 10 numbers only. Then you could just define the same in the compound unit itself. Through that, you can get the report. If in case your conversion varies, then in that particular case, you could use the alternate unit of measure. Hope the same is clear. Similarly, moving forward to the other options in the stock item master creation. So we'll looked into this, the unit of measure, alternate units. Then there is one option with regards to batches. So let's say once you enable the same, whenever you would do any data entry, it would ask you for which batch you are purchasing the same or manufacturing the same, or when dispatching, you are dispatching from which particular batch. Similarly, there is an option for alter components of BOM. Now see what is BOM. BOM is basically bill of material. So what it shows that, let's say for manufacturing this brand a 17-inch smart television, what all components you would require for the purpose of manufacturing. So that we could define here, and accordingly your manufacturing entries would be posted automatically just by selecting the number of units manufactured. So we have created one BOM, that is TV. Now this is the basically the bill of material. So what this shows, what is the BOM name, that is television, TV. Component, so this is the stock item name. So this stock item would be manufactured. So to manufacture one brand a 17-inch smart TV, what all raw materials you would require? So what are the raw materials required? So one is the screen. So screen, basically from where the screen needs to be consumed, that is from the raw material go down. This is basically the component. And what is the quantity? So to manufacture one television, you would require one screen. Then to manufacture one television, you would even require one IC. So you could even define the same here. Then in case if in your manufacturing process, there are any co-product or byproduct, then even that could be defined here. Or in case there are any scrap, then even that could be defined here. So see, when you look here, here it would display the list of godowns. Here it would provide you whether this is a byproduct, whether this is a co-product, or whether this is a scrap. So you could select the same accordingly. So just for example, let's say while manufacturing, there is some scrap also. So you could create one stock item. Uh, just mention here under kgs. It would be, let's say, in this would be scrap would be stored in the stores scroll down. This you can have it as scrap. Quantity you could just mention, let's say if there are any specific standard, like let's say 1 kg or some sort of scrap, and you would even define the percentage for the same. So this percentage are basically for the purpose of cost allocation for scrap. So those percentage would be allocated to the scrap. And in similarly, in case there are any such sort of byproducts, then you could even define the same under byproduct. And this is very relevant with regards to manufacturing in Tally. Then there is option for enabling cost tracking. So previously we saw a report of cost tracking. If you want to have the cost tracking, I would say the entire segregation of your manufacturing cost, overheads, everything, you need to enable this feature. Costing method. So they have provided various costing methods: FIFO, LIFO, average, standard cost. You could select the same. Generally, based on the income tax and other law, it is recommended to have FIFO and average price. That is the valuation method. Again, based on your industry, you could define whether you want to have it as per LIFO or whatever method you want. Currently, we are taking FIFO average. Similarly, with regards to GST applicability, you could define the same HSN codes, the rates for the same, the GST rate and all those things. Further, if you want to drill down the same, just check the FFL configuration. So all the setups with regards to the stock, whether you want to have alias or not, description, part number, stock number, notes for stock items, you could set this to yes. So basically when it is useful, if let's say your vendor has any sort of catalog number, you could even define the catalog number here in alias also, or even in the part number that is provided. So what happens that if you search by the catalog number, then in that particular case also that stock item will be reflected at the time of data entry or while viewing the reports. Then the unit of measure that we looked into: maintain stock in batches if you want to maintain the same in batches. Bill of material, which we already discussed. Provide standard buying selling rates. Now see what is the relevance of this option: standard buying selling rates and provide MRP details. That's why we are setting the same to yes, standard buying selling rates. Okay. Now let's say if now see currently there is one option here that is set alter MRP. This is basically with regards to MRP, and there is one even option here that is alter standard rates. So let's say I'm enabling the same to yes. So if I want to have any specific standard rates, so let's say if you don't have any sort of general costing for your product, you want to define the standard buying rate and the standard selling rate for this particular product, and according to which your valuation should be done based on the standard rates. Then in that particular case, you could define the same here for a particular period. And in the valuation method, you can keep it as set this to standard rate, the standard cost that is there. So accordingly, your valuation will be done based on the standard rates. Then the stock valuation methods that we already discussed. Set options for stock item behavior. Now, what is this? Now, see, there is one option here: provide options for stock behavior. If you set the same to yes, so now see, there are, I would say, uh, some fields that are provided. Ignore difference due to physical counting for this particular item. So let's say actually in books it is 10 quantity. When physically you calculated the same, it turned out to be 20. So if you want to ignore the same or not, uh, I don't know whether you are aware or not, but Tally even has a capability of providing the physical voucher entry. So let's say if there is 10 stock items in books, however, on physical verification, it was 8 only. Then once you enter the same in the physical stock voucher type, then in that particular case, system would automatically update the same to 8. So even that feature is there in Tally, that auto consumption based on the physical inventory counting that is possible. Ignore negative balances. So if there is any scenario that stock item is negative, then currently if you use the same, it doesn't block, but it provides you with a pop-up for the same that this inventory goes negative. So if you want to ignore the same, you can set this to yes. Treat all sales as new manufacture. So let's say if there is any product which you are selling the same, but you don't want to pass the manufacturing journal for the same. So there is no production as of now, but you are selling the same. So let's say there is some negligent scrap which was there in your manufacturing process, which has not been accounted for and which you want to sell for some nominal unit. Then in that particular case, for that item, you can set this option to yes. So that what would happen whenever you would pass your sales entry for that item, in that particular case, the production would be automatically done. So that sales would be treated as new manufacture by itself. So Tally would automatically consider the same as new manufacture for that particular stock item. Treat all purchase as consumed. So this is something that, let's say if you purchase anything, and you don't want the same should be reflected in your closing stock. So just for example, you purchase some nuts and bolts. So these are very negligent in quantity, and they are I would say, when you procure the same, and at the same time they are going to be consumed. So what you could do is you could just set this option to yes, that treat all purchases consumed. So let's say you purchase some 2 3 boxes of nuts and bolts, it won't be reflected in your stock report, it would be automatically consumed. And treat all rejection inward as scrap. So let's say if there are any defective goods that were provided to your customers, if those are rejected in, then if you pass the same in the rejected inward voucher, then it would be treated as scrap. Just to provide you with an understanding of the same, let us take some stock item. So let's say this particular stock item only, alternate unit. So first thing is I'm enabling this option to yes, treat all purchases consumed. We would look into the same, that how the same works. So now let's say we are purchasing this. Now see what happened. See, when I save this particular voucher, and I'm even doing the same for the other voucher also. See what happened, that by default in outward it shows to 1. So what happens that whenever I purchase this particular item, by default it would consume the same. So if there are any such sort of item like a smaller quantity of nuts and bolts or other thing, you could just have this option to yes, so that by default it would do one thing, that the consumption entry you are not supposed to pass manually for those items, and your inventory would be automatically maintained. Similarly, let's take an example for sales, that again there is some negligent scrap which has been generated and which I want to sell the same. There is no stock item production entry for the same. So considering this as the same, let's say we are passing a sales entry. So let's say we are mentioning 30 box. Now see that option we enable, that ignore negative stock. We didn't set it to yes. So as the same is no, it would provide me with a pop-up that this stock is going negative. Currently, I'm accepting the same. Rate I'm keeping 400. Now see what happened when I see closing stock is 0. It by default provided here in the invert also 30. So my all sales are treated as my manufacture and all purchases are treated as my consumer. So this is the basic relevance of this option. That is under the stock behavior. Hope the same is clear to everyone. And so we checked all these options. Set default accounting allocations for stock item. So if you want any specific accounting allocation or ledger allocation for any particular item, you could just select the same to yes. Stock item behavior we already saw. Opening balance for stock item, that is already. So see, these are the basic options that are there for the inventory management. Now coming to the point, that was with regards to this entire manufacturing cycle, how that works and the reporting for the same. So let's say I'm starting from one of the, let's say, sales order. Control F8 is the shortcut for the same. I am providing one order. Okay, so currently let's say I'm not selecting the price level here. So if I select the price level and if the same is defined, then prices would be automatically reflected here. So my date for the same is, let's say, 30th April 2026. I need to select the period. 30th April 26. So I'm providing the order name as April 26 order, so that it would be easy for the purpose of traceability. Or let's say it is New order, I'm just mentioning the same for reference. This is sales ledger. So let's say this is the stock item that we are selecting. Okay. It is, let's say, due on 30th. Go down, we are selecting. So let's say it's under the branch go down or raw material or finished good go down, wherever you want to click, keep the same. Let's say we are keeping the same in the finished good go down only. So 30 is the number. Now see, when we selected the retailer in the price level, what happens? And now see, there is an option here for cost tracking. So I'm keeping the cost tracking as new order. So what happens that now see, once I selected the same, the rate is automatically populated, that is 36,000, and the discount is 1%. Now I cannot even manually alter the same. So the admin who has rights for price level defining, only he would be in a position to do the same. Let's say this is the order that I have placed. Okay. Now against this order, let's say initially I am doing some of the traveling expense. I'm just passing a journal. Traveling expense 5,000. Now see, when you look into this in traveling expense here, so there are various options that this is under the group of indirect expense. Now see, when I select the same, it would ask me it is for which cost tracking. Now see, cost tracking and cost center in Tally are a different thing. This cost tracking is basically useful from the perspective of manufacturing in Tally. I selected, let's say, no quantity, it is only in terms of value. I can even provide the cost centers for the same. Let's say I'm providing under the primary, or I'm providing under the Gujarat, Ahmedabad. Now see, coming to report for the same, so that you have an entire clarity how that works. So this is the new order that we are discussing about. So see, as of now, what we have done is we have just entered a new order. This is the tracking details for this particular order. 30 numbers, the 30 is the quantity of the order, which is based on this sales order that we have entered in Tally. And we have already incurred an expense of 5,000 for this particular order. So it provides me that there is a total expense of 5,000 for the same. So currently my cost incurred till date is 5,000. There is no as of now consumption cost or anything for the same. Now moving forward. So for manufacturing of this particular thing, now we would require some ICs also and even some screens also. Let me do one thing. Currently there isn't any stock of this uh, for IC. So I would just have some of the quantities for the same. Let's say let me average at 90. And screens ready. And see, Tally even provides with one feature with regards to uh, order, that is purchase order, GRN, and against the same your actual purchase invoice. So whenever you do any sort of entries in Tally, then you need to make sure that you use that feature. That is again very useful from the perspective of controls. Now, for the purpose of setting up of manufacturing journal, so let's say you go into voucher class. I have created one voucher class of assembly. I have kept the same under the stock journal. Now, see, if there is an option here that do you want to use the same for the purpose of manufacture, you need to set the same to yes and track additional cost of purchase. So for the purpose of tracking the additional cost, you can set this to yes. So this is necessary that for manufacturing journal, you select the same. Now, when you are passing the entry, so F7 is for journal, Alt F7. Now, when you go into same, whether you want to pass a normal stock journal or the manufacturing journal. So we are selecting the manufacturing journal. Now see, this is the screen of manufacturing journal, which is completely different from the stock journal screen. So let's say your product that you were to develop, that was this brand a 17-inch television. So you are manufacturing in which particular godown? So let's say in the finished good godown you are manufacturing. The quantity is 50. Now out of this 50, now see again, for the or order size is 30 only. So let us do one thing. Let us have manufacture of only 30 as of now, so that you have clarity that how the same works on one-on-one basis. So this is for the purpose of this new order. You selected the same 30. So what happens that, let's say when you selected 30 here, it by default selected that for manufacturing this television, you would require screen and you would even require the IC. So the quantities for the same would be 30 and 30, because the same has been defined in the BOM that for 1 unit of television, you would require one IC and one screen. And these rates are directly fetched based on the existing stock valuation. Now see, there is one option here that is track additional components. So if there are any sort of overheads that have been incurred, you could even define based on the percentage. So let's say 5% of the same, or you could even define based on the value of the same. And you can have this overhead. Now, this overhead allocation, this doesn't do any sort of entry in Tally. So what happens that this would basically, I would say, increase your manufacturing cost, the overheads that are incurred for the same, because stock needs to be valued at your total raw material procurement cost plus all the overheads that have been incurred till date. You need to sum up and you need to compare the same with the market rate. So that what is the effective cost of manufacturing for this particular product? So this is 10 lakh 50,000 is the raw material cost, and let's say this 50 to 500, that is the overhead allocation. So the total cost is 11 lakh 2,500 for 30 pieces. So the per piece cost turns out to be 36,750 per piece, per number. Now this overhead allocation doesn't have any direct entry in the financials. It only increases your stock valuation. So indirectly it affects your profitability and other things. That these are the overhead incurred. So let's say your power bill is received tomorrow. So those power bills would be consolidated for the entire factory. However, out of those power bill, 5% has been because of this particular manufacturing. So it is allocated to the same. Now let's look into the report again. So we have this new, okay. So now when you look into the same, the bifurcation of the same. So now see, overhead allocation was of 50 to 500. Traveling expense that we entered previously was 5,000. So total cost turns out to be 57,500, and the consumption cost of material, that is 10 lakh 50,000 kgs. So your overall cost till now for this 30 pieces is 11 lakh 7,500. Now let's say when you sell the same. All right, before selling, let's enter the delivery note for the same. So this was basically the selling price for the same that was defined. And against the same, let's have sales invoice. Just a minute, I just need to check what was the delivery note for the same. See here also cost tracking I'm mentioning to be new order. On 1st May 56. So batch final go down, I'm selecting as this finished good go down. So let's say the rate is 49. And if I allocate the same under the new order in the cost tracking. Coming to the report. Now it was in total sold for 49,000. Sorry, this is the new one. It was sold for 49,000, 30 pieces. So the rate was 14,750. So my per unit profitability that turned out to be 12,083. So see, and this even shows the movement analysis that order received 30, materials delivered 60, because I mentioned the delivery note twice. That's the reason. And materials build 30. And this is the manufacture. That is 30 numbers have been manufactured. So this is basically the item cost analysis report that is directly available from the system. Now, other than that, there are various other reports also with regards to the reorder level and in Tally. So let's say, just to provide you with a walkthrough, you could even define the reorder levels in Tally. So now see, these are all the list of all the stock items. So what is the reorder quantity that you want to provide? So let's say for IC it is 30, for and the minimum order quantity. So minimum order quantity should be 40. So accordingly, it would provide you that, let's say, the whenever the order goes, the stock inventory goes beyond below 30, then in that particular case you need to provide a minimum of order of 40 quantities for the same. So for each of your raw material you could define the same here. Then in that particular case, from the report you would directly have that what all things are to be ordered in what number. So let's say when you go here, there is a report for reorder status. So you could just view the same. We have entered the reorder for all these things. So let's say here the closing stock is 39 for brand A TV. Sales order due 30, 30 is the order that has been received of the 30 number. So net available is my 9 only. Net inventory that is available for this television. So this is the reorder level that is there for the same. So reorder level is defined here at 20. So again, I need to order the same, and the minimum order quantity is 30. So I need to order 30. Similarly, when you look into the same, the IC, the stock as of now is negative 20. Reorder level is 30. Now, as the stock is below 30, it shows us that I need to order the same. The shortfall is 50. Minimum order quantity is 40. So how it would order? Minimum order quantity or shortfall, whichever is higher. Accordingly, I need to order the same. So this is something which is the, I would say, basically a report, so that the stores manager could directly view the same and have an ordering. Here, if you look into the screens, the numbers are 85. Reorder level is 20. Minimum order quantity is 13. So currently, as the stock is more than the reorder level, you are not supposed to place the order for the same. So this is the basic report for the same. Now, I would initially like to have each of the questions of each users. I suppose many things would have already been answered, so I would like to take it up individually, then we would proceed further. So there was one question from Mr. From the Denovo Engineering Company. If in your production process some unit of raw materials are fixed and some are variable, it is better to consume raw material through physical manufacturing voucher. Please suggest. So see, as we already discussed that we define the bill of material here, and if in case there are no such sort of standardization, then in that particular case, see what happens. Let's say you are providing this particular entry only, assembling entry, brand ATV. So go down, you selected the here, same here. Quantity you are mentioning 3. Now see, even in case if your names of the raw materials to be consumed are fixed, only your items are variable, then in that case, it would be automatically populated here. You could just change the quantity here. So even that option is possible. And even if you don't want to do the same, then in that particular case, you have an option for normal stock journal posting. So you could just select the consumption here and you could define the production here. That would be the ideal scenario. So you can use the same based on your requirement. Then how to account allotted overheads. So see, you don't need to account it manually. As we discussed in our example, that the overhead cost turns out to be, let's say, 5%, which was 50 to 500. Now that 50 to 500, it is a summary of, let's say there would be your power bill. So let's say your power bill is monthly 1 lakh. So out of that 1 lakh, you allocated some of the portion, let's say of 5%. So amounting to 5,000 was for this particular order. So your 1 lakh is already going to be booked when you are going to receive the invoice for the same at the month end. But this is something that based on your standard estimations, based on your standard costing, you are allocating a portion of that cost to your inventory so that the inventory valuation is currently correctly accounted for. So this is basically the manner, and you don't need to do anything to manually enter the same. Once you would enter your actual bills, it would be automatically matching with your PNL, because bills would be entered in the PNL statement, and against the same there would be the stock of the equivalent quantity, equivalent value, which would be equivalent to the amount of the bills. The cost of the bills would have already been included in the closing stock valuation. So hope the same is clear. Then FIFO method shows automatic pick from the stock. So see, by default, whatever valuation would be there, that would be there. You can just select the same further from the drop down. Then in perpetual FIFO, does they take into consideration past purchases also? In FIFO, opening is taken as first in. So see, there are various methods, and even I would say even in the standard cost, what it does is, so let's say when you look into your past purchases, so the cumulative of that past purchases is your opening stock valuation that is there. So it is by default, I would say, considered in the FIFO valuation by itself. And what would happen that in that case, it would take a standard of all the inventory that is there, and it would take valuation according to the same. So in perpetual, it would consider all of the same. And many times in, I would say even in standard costing, what happens, Tally takes the overall standard right from the day even the data is managed. So let's say if you are selecting a standard cost based on the same standard weighted average, then it would be based on your opening average plus your current year procurement average, and the overall average would be considered. So the ideal method of selection, ideal method for accurate stock reporting or valuation would be the FIFO and the average. So what would it would do is, FIFO would be based on your the existing stock. So let's say you have 200, 300, and 400. These are the inventory quantities. Now you are dispatching 500. So what it would do is, it would initially take the, if you have not mentioned the same if you have not maintained the same batch wise, it would do an average of the same and provide a weighted average for the stock of that 1,000. So let's say for that 1,000 quantity, the average rate was 300. So accordingly it would take that valuation. And the other option is that for that particular purchase, the first purchase, it would take the valuation of the first purchase, and the second purchase, it would take the average of the same, and accordingly it would provide you with the valuation. then there was one point that no BOM to be created. So if you want to pass manual stock journals, then you could even do it without creating any BOM. You could just pass the same manually. Can we set different methods of valuation for different products? So yes, that is very well available. It is the valuation methods are defined on the stock items. So for each stock item, you could define the same separately. Please also tell us how the use of co-product, byproduct, and component in BOM. So I've already discussed the same. So let's say if in your manufacturing process, so let me do one thing. I would even take one live example for better clarity. So let's say there is one BOM for computer. Okay, now see for computer, there are three, I would say, components that are raw material that are consumed. I need monitor, keyboard, mouse. Now I am adding one BOM for the same. This is just a hypothetical thing. So there is some scrap, let's say. In the stores go down, I am keeping under the name of scrap, 1% of the cost. Then there is one byproduct. Under the go down of finished good, I am keeping. Then there is and I'm just saving the same. Now see what happens here. When I selected this particular BOM assembly, just check the BOM. And in byproduct, I need to just select the same as here under the byproduct. So what happens? So I am selecting computer. So these are the three materials that are consumed. Now along with this, so let's say this is in under the finished goods step, quantity is 1. So what happens? The cost it would take by itself. Now keyboard and mouse currently there is no inventory, so the rate it is not fetching as of now because there is no inventory or no stock for the same. Accordingly, what it would do is it would even provide you with the scrap that 1% of the total cost. So 1% of the total cost, that is 250, that needs to be allocated to scrap. So 2.5 is allocated to scrap. Byproduct rate, you can define it, or you could even provide the standard rates for the same. So the balance rate that would be there, that would be for your actual product. So let's say in this particular example itself, my byproduct is valued at 6%. So when I would pass this entry, what it would do is 6% of the cost would be allocated to my byproduct. So I'm manufacturing, let's say three pieces. So in this case, see, if you see the same, 750 is my total cost, and the 6% for the same equivalent, it would be allocated here to my byproduct. And the amount it turns out to be 45 rupees. And the balance cost that is there, the effective cost out of 750, this much cost that is there, that is 52.5 is already allocated to scrap and byproduct. So balance is the cost for my basic finished good that is produced. So this is how the scrap this in Tally works. Scrap, co-product, byproduct. Hope the same is clear. What type of setting do we use standard wise in school account? I just didn't get the question. If you could please, I would say, provide it a bit in brief. So see, if means I don't know means whether it is from perspective of using Tally in school, then if you are using a single license and accordingly you could just configure the same and provide to the students, and they can use the same. Or if you can just provide the question in detail, what exactly you are asking. Let us know how to nullify the stock transfer margin in inventory. In inventory while transferring stock from one branch to another. So see, practically, I would say there is first thing would be that whether you are maintaining two separate tally accounts for the same or there is a single tally account. First is we need to look into the same. Now let's say for a single company itself, there are multiple branches and stock movement happens from one branch to another. Then in that particular case, tally even has a option for go down transfer. So let's say just for an understanding, I'm creating one voucher type. I don't know whether it is created or not. Let me just check. No, there is no go down transfer in this as of now. So let me create one. So I'm creating one voucher type.
Kunalji, do you have to like transfer this at cost value itself so that there is no profit?
Sorry.
For this particular question, I think it cannot be done. So when we create a transaction, we can transfer it at a cost value itself so that
That,
there is no
that
profit.
would be done at the same rate, I would say. But how the same is done means, say, whatever valuation is there in the books, it would be done at the same rate.
Okay.
So let's say if in the books the stock is at valued at let's say 100 rupees per piece, then in that particular case that it would be transferred in that particular go down at 100 rupees per piece only. There is no, I would say, separate requirement to have any profit or elimination for the same or anything. But if in case they would have maintained the same separately. So let's say if in one company they have created a HO, other is their branch, and they are providing the same on margin basis, then in that particular case, it is something that it needs to be done manually. So just for the understanding, let's say I would just provide you with a walkthrough for this go down transfer. So you need to define a class for the same. So use class for inter go down transfer. Now see, when you select the same, this is basically useful that from one go down, if you want to transfer the same to another go down. So what is the source and the destination go down? You could just select the same here. Now see here, whenever this thing takes place, it would generally takes place at the actual stock valuation rate. Even the rate would be auto populated if there is some physical stock which is lying for that particular inventory. So now see, let's say when you selected keyboard, it by default took the rate of 3000. Now, see, when you have this particular thing that, let's say there is some stock and you want to transfer to some separate godown or anything, it would be done or managed through stock transfer. Now, if there are any such sort of thing whereby, let's say you have maintained one company, you are sending it to your branch office and you have prepared actually a sales invoice for the purpose from the perspective of GST. So let's say your branch is at Mumbai, your head office is at Gujarat. From Gujarat, you are selling the same to Mumbai. Then in that particular case, see, when you would merge all the data, this sale purchase transaction would be automatically, I would say, nullified. So, see, practically, you are not supposed to do anything manually, but when you do consolidation or anything, then in that case, that items would be nullified. However, if there is just a sort of that you have one GST only and you have multiple location, you are sending from one go down to another, that could be managed directly through this branch transfer. And if you are using the same as a different company or different GSTN, you are selling the same to the other GSTN, then in that particular case, once you do the consolidation or have the group company for the same, then the sales purchase for the intergroup would be eliminated. So accordingly, your stock would be at the existing valuation itself. Okay. So hope that would have answered your query. So let's say if we have stock that can be denoted in boxes, packets, and pieces. So yes,
I think it's a incomplete question.
yeah, if you could please, I would say provide a bit in detail. But just to clarify on this, so if the question is that, let's say there are three multiple unit of production, then how you could manage the same? So I would just like to clarify that, see, as of now, alternate units only to the extent of two units could be measured. So if you want that boxes also, packets also, and pieces also, that is practically not possible. So up to two alternatives. So one main unit, one alternate unit, that is possible. How will my scrap value affect is seen in P&L or balance sheet? So see, as of now, when you have this particular scrap entry in Tally, so scrap would be basically maintained here. So I just didn't save that particular transaction. Let me show you. So let's say when you are going for this computer. Now see here, when you look into the same, the scrap is valued at 7.5%, 7.5 rupees for 3 kgs. So what happens that it would show in your inventory that this is 3 and 7.5. Now let's say, just for example, if this particular scrap is your normal loss, so practically for your all normal losses, there doesn't need to be any sort of valuation for the same. So what you could do is you could just define the cost allocation to be 0% here. That is one of the option. And the other option would be you can just provide this particular option that with regards to manufacturing, that you just need to consider the same as consumed by default. Then that is something that is possible. Or you could just mention the same in percentage terms to be zero. So what happens that it would provide you with the quantity in kgs, that what all are the quantities which are there. It won't show you with any value. So if you want to monitor that what is the total scrap in the manufacturing process, it would show you with the quantity wise, but there won't be any impact on the valuation in the inventory. So in that manner, you could use the same. Then there is one more question. We run a 24/7 manufacturing and update production in Tally once daily, but sales are invoiced throughout the day. This causes negative stock unless we pass the provisional production entries, which later needs editing due to actual consumption differences. What is the best compliance friendly process in Tally to handle for this for public limited company? Now, see, when you are saying that it is a public limited company, first thing that I would suggest is that you don't need to do the accounting in a manner that you have not even passed your production entries and you are just directly preparing the sales invoice. So there should be some sort of inbuilt controls that for any of the negative inventory, you should not be in a position to prepare the sales invoice for the same, because otherwise what would happen? Anyone can prepare any sales invoice, even generate e-invoice bill for the same. So what I would recommend is that you need to make sure that the production journals are passed at the same time, because if whenever the production has happened, what you could do is the better alternate for the same would be, as we discussed previously, that we can define the BOM. In the BOM, you could define the standard production consumption norms. So let's say what is the standard conversion norm for your industry. So accordingly, your raw materials would be consumed. Accordingly, your finished good would be produced. So in that particular case, what would happen? Every time before preparing the sales invoice, you could just pass one manufacturing journal and your inventory for that particular item would be ready. And for passing that inventory journal, you don't need to do everything manually, that you need to select each of the raw material that are consumed. Then along with the same, you need to provide that this much is manufactured, this much is the rate value and all those things. Just select your finished good item, just select the BOM and just provide the quantity that is manufactured. Accordingly, system would do the entire manufacturing entry based on the standard costing that has been defined. Accordingly, what you could do is at the end of the day, you could just check that whether the valuations and other things were correct or not. Accordingly, you could just directly update your BOM, so that when the next day the manufacturing journal is passed, then there are no such sort of big deviations or anything. So the better option would be that use the BOM, provide a manufacturing journal for the same, and post that only prepare the sales invoice. And looking at public limited company, that would be a more feasible solution. Okay, thanks for explaining. Fine. Okay, additional cost we already discussed. Overhead allocation 5%. How do we match with the actual overheads? So see how this works is, see, when you look into the costing perspective for any industry, what they do is they generally take the overall costing for the industry as a whole for a particular month. So let's say you have a company. In that company, your total power cost turns out to be X amount. So let's say 2 lakh rupees. Your total labor cost turns out to be 3 lakh rupees. Against the same, what is your production for a particular month? So this is one of the bases that I am discussing. So let's say your production is 5,000 units. So that value you would divide by this 5,000 units. Accordingly, the percentage that comes, that percentage you would provide for each of the units. So what happens is, by default, the standard value is allocated in that manufacturing process. Now there are different bases for allocation for different industries. So it is possible that some industries may have multiple manufacturing processes, and each department has a separate process. So when you are passing the manufacturing journal of each particular department, initially what you need to do is you need to allocate that electricity bill into different departments. Then against that particular department, what is the power cost? Against the same, what is the production that is expected for a month? Accordingly, you need to derive at a percentage, and that allocation needs to be done. So how this percentage are derived? So these are based on the standard costing. So based on the standard cost, you derive the percentage, and what happens at the end of the month, you just check it that whether this actual standard cost are in line with the actual cost. If yes, keep the percentage as it is. If no, then you need to update your percentage so that within, let's say, 2-3 months, your standard percentage and actual percentage would be more or less on the same line. And this is the general practice that any industry in any ERP they use the same. And this is, I would say, one of the best feature that has been provided, that if you want to allocate based on the standard costing, then Tally directly provides that option that at the time of manufacturing itself, you could allot the same, so that there are no, I would say, separate journals or anything to be passed for the same. So this is a more or less a verification process at the month end further. Okay. Then there is one question. My problem is that I have one brand scooter with serial number on body. Product is scooter. I want to make I want to maintain stock serial number wise. Okay. So now see, what I understood from your question is that this you have one brand scooter, and for that brand, every time there would be a unique serial number that would be there. So that serial number, rather than you defining under the stock group or stock category, you could define the same under the batch. So what happens, just for your understanding, let's say you are passing any entry. Purchase or sale anything, or even manufacturing, I would say. This is just for understanding so that you would have an idea. So let's say this is your scooter, I would say. You have different brands or different things. Now see, you could maintain the same under batches. So let's say there is one of serial number 0086. Now see, this was one serial number. Okay. Now this is other serial number. So what you could do is you could just maintain based on the same. And if you want the report of the same, even the report of the same would be displayed. Display more reports. So now see, when you would look into the same year, you would get the detailed serial number wise of each particular stock lying in each of the same. So that is something how you could use the same. Hope the same is clear. Can we maintain jeweler stock who is dealing in gold, silver, and diamond simultaneously doing manufacturing, trading, job work, pure labor, and making charges? So yes, I would say that is very well possible. So let's say there are initially first we take into the example there are three stock items. So one is the gold, silver, and diamond. Now this is something which is I would say pure bullion. So gold is there, it is a pure gold. So that there it would have a different item. Now let's say you are manufacturing jewelry out of that gold or silver. So in that particular case, what you would do is you would just consume that particular gold, and out of that you would manufacture jewelry. So there would be a production entry for the same, and gold would be consumed and jewelry would be produced. So accordingly, jewelry would be your finished good. Let's say you have traded that gold directly, so there would be gold bars that would be there. So you could just have that as a directly as a sales and purchase entries. So that could happen through trading. Further, there is one more thing, that is this job work. So let's say if you are doing job work for anyone else, or if you are providing the same for job work, then Tally even has an inbuilt feature for job work module in Tally, whereby what you could do is you could even provide for the job work orders. So against the same, actual material in out doesn't happen directly, it goes uh, on this delivery note and other thing, the material in material out voucher. Accordingly, your stock may be with the third party and third party stock may be with you. So even that is managed directly. So yes, that is very well possible. And the fourth one is pure label making charges. So pure label, you can just prepare the service invoice for the same directly in Tally. Just discussing with this particular point, I would like to take one more thing in Tally, that when defining the godowns in Tally. So let's say there is one option. So you could just define the name of the godown, allow storage of material, and there are two options here: our stock with third party and third party stock with us. So what is the relevance of this particular options? So let's say when you select our stock with third party, even though you would have dispatched the goods to your customer, let's say to your dater you have dispatched the goods, or to any of the job worker you have dispatched the goods, then in that particular case, though the stock is not lying with you at your physical premises, it is at the third party location, it would still reflect in your closing stock, the inventory and the valuation, and it would be considered for the purpose of valuation. And similarly, there is an option for third party stock with us. So if let's say anyone has provided you with goods which are for job work or any other purpose, which is of not of your ownership, if you want to view the same separately, that report would be visible. However, it would not be considered in your financials by default. Third party stock. So let's say this is the third party go down and we have selected this third party stock with us to yes. Now let me check if any entries have been done in that particular go down or not. So currently there has been no entry. So let's say just for example, just understanding, I'm just passing a stock journal. I'm taking any of the item, let's say accessories. Now see, I'm taking in third party go down. Now see, though I pass that entry, currently in the stock valuation, it is not displaying any amount. Same would apply for my balance sheet and my P&L also. So what happens is, when I go in this particular report, so see currently the go down type is our stock with us and third party. Now let's say I'm just selecting this particular option, third party stock with us. I don't want any other. So there are two third party stocks. This is the one that I entered previously. So this is something which is not of my ownership, but it is lying in my physical premises. So let's say at the time of physical verification, if I get this stock, then I would have an idea that this is of some other party which is lying with me and not of my ownership, and this won't impact your financials. So it is not reflected in your balance sheet and P&L. It is just for the purpose of the reporting under the stock summary. And similarly for television, I have kept one as third party stock with us. So this is some the basic relevance of third party stock with us and how that works in Tally.
Kunalji, just interrupting here. So we have it's 4:30 now, reach the limit. So could you go through the questions, and if anything,
Yeah, sure.
we can take it up
Okay,
and
sure.
complete it.
Okay. Okay, then there is one more question: how to make entry for electricity expenses allocation in manufacturing? Uh, so this I already discussed that you can just select one overhead for the same, and you could use the same. How to organize inventory in case of pharmaceutical organization where there is different kind of units for each stock. So even after using compound method, we can use only 2 unit of comparison. But in such above said organization, there are several subunits which makes hard to organize inventory. So see, I would just say that if you have more than or three or four alternate units, then you can have some sort of customizations and specific fields for the same. So it is possible in that manner further. When we transfer goods from one state to another, need to raise the sales invoice. So yes, so again, when you are transferring from one state to another, you need to prepare the e-way bill for the same, and even there would be different GSTN for the same. So you need to bill to that GSTN. But again, if you are discussing from the perspective of this margin or other thing, see, your stock valuation would always be at cost. Let's say even if you have sold the same at some profit margin, and against that profit margin, so that sale bill would have profit. Equivalently, your purchase will also be there in your branch. So when you consolidate the same, sales and purchase would be nullified, and it would be at the actual stock only. So it again at the time of consolidation or merging the financials, the effect would get nullified. Stock valuation takes last transaction, so inventory value affected. No, it is not that stock valuation takes last transaction. It is based on the valuation method that you would have defined. All the master data that we export from Tally material master, we will get that in Excel horizontal format or same vertical format. For example, item name in one column, second column category. So yes, you could have the same. There is one option that is possible whereby you could have the entire master export from Tally directly. We are a service provider, say job worker. In invoices, we prepare our sales invoice by taking quantity in square yards and rate per square yard. Now in inventory, it's shown in negative in quantity and the amount, while it is zero in practical for accounting purpose. Also, in case where we don't take quantity, inventory amount is shown negative. What is the solution? So see, I just showed with the one stock behavior option that considered all sales as manufactured. So if you could just set the same 2 years, then every time it won't be a scenario that your inventory is shown as negative and other things. So this particular feature is very helpful from the perspective of service industry if you are evaluating or if you use the same. We also do job work. Can we maintain inventory of job work raw material in separate godown without any financial effect? So yes, that is very well possible. I just discussed the scenario in the last case that I took. Can we voice Q&A after this session? Okay. And
Yeah. No, please complete.
yes, so I suppose all the questions in the Q&A have been answered, I suppose.
Yes. One person, I think Mr. Hemant wanted to ask the question directly
Yes.
at the question. So I'll allow just one last question.
Yes, sure.
Yeah. Mr. Hemant, I've unmuted you. Please ask your question.
No, you can. I can ask question after the formal session, after the recorded session. It's over. Time is over now.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can ask the question after the recorded session.
Okay. Okay. I think he don't. Okay. I think maybe he wants to talk to you directly. Is that what you mean, Mr. Hemant?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
you could
So
just
Kunalji, maybe if you can drop in your email ID, if that helps, you can
Yeah, sure.
no,
write.
ma'am. Just I will have a 1 minute chat only in the Zoom only after the coordinating session. We will stop the recording.
Okay.
Sorry.
Uh, Okay, so actually it's 4:35 and we have completed today's session. So firstly, Kunalji, great job actually. 30 plus questions answered, and I think considering the quality of questions today, it was all domain related. Some were jewelry, some were pharma. In fact, so many go down related. Some questions I asked our product team to answer. So thank you so much, and so many compliments. And in fact, one of them actually says that they didn't know these features existed and they were not knowing it, and now they find it very useful. So many people found it useful. I actually put a question in the chat. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Kunalji. He's an expert definitely for inventory and stock. I reach out to him because I think he's from Ahmedabad and he has major clients. And I think Ahmedabad is rich on the manufacturing sector part as well. So thank you so much. And Kunalji has put his email ID also if you want to write to him. And for the webinar recording, we are still getting requests. So I will send one. If you're already part of our CA community, you can ask there. And I'm also sending the playlist link in the chat. So we upload all our CA Connect recording over there. So you can refer to the recording. I'll make sure that it gets uploaded in a day or two. Thank you so much, Kunalji. Great session, and I think the questions were so insightful, and your answers. I think it was only possible because of your deep experience in this sector. That is why you could answer everything, and yes, it is very possible, and you could show directly into the tally. So thank you so much for your commitment and such a thorough session. So that was a great thing. Thank you. I'll now end the session.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.